there's so many people around. I'm not good at videoing myself talking when there's a bunch of other people around. I get very self-conscious of it. So I'm just going to kind of sit here quietly and write my journal for a while. I already feel like a bit of a unicorn in parks like this because I have a very small tent and no car, and it's very obvious that people are looking at me funny. Just having a clothesline up of stuff hanging up to dry is kind of a radical act in here. I'm not very good at sketching things, but I like to do it because it sets memories differently. I remember things differently when I write them down and draw them. And I always love journals and books and things that have little doodles in the margins and little side notes and just little stupid pictures of things. And I would love to write a book about adventures, either my own or someone else's, someday. And I would love to be able to draw little doodles or paintings in the margins. So there's my angry storm cloud that's blowing in over Search Bay where I was camped. As I was relaxing after dinner, the couple across the path from me started playing some lovely music. I went over and asked them if I could record some for my vlogs, and they happily obliged.
Oh!
Nice shot. I got it.
What's your name?
I'm Tim.
Tim, I'm Chris.
Chris.
I'm Linda.
Chris and Linda, nice to meet you.
Glad to meet you.
Once upon a time there was an engineer, drove his locomotive both far and near, accompanied by a monkey who would sit on a stool, and he was watching everything the engineer would do.
It's hard to hit the microphone close enough, and let it do it.
You can hear a little tune across the canyon, whisper.
And as always, the conversation turned toward how meaningful adventure can be.
We rode bicycles starting in Seattle, and our goal was to get to Boston. I made it as far as Minneapolis area, Minnesota, because that's where Linda's from. And he had to bail out in like Montana somewhere because he had a family emergency, so I loaded him and his bike onto a bus and he took off. So I spent the last 2 weeks riding by myself. It was a completely different experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. There's so many adventures I could tell you about, but all had to do with trail angels.
It's always the people on the way that make the best, most meaningful experiences.
We were coming down the east side of the Rockies into Wyoming somewhere, and I hit a rock, and we were carrying like 85 pounds of gear on the bikes, and I hit a rock and bent the crap out of my front rim, and it was like another 50 or 60 miles to the next town, and I'm 20 miles an hour, or 5 miles an hour. Anyway, we find this bike shop in this little town, and he said, I can try to straighten that for you. I've got an old rim truing machine up in the attic. Let me go get it. He must have spent 15 hours on that rim and took us home with him. We camped in his yard that night. They fed us. I mean, it was fantastic. And the next day, after putting 15 hours into that rim, it was perfect. Wouldn't take a dime for it. So we ended up, out of guilt, buying a bunch of stuff from the bike shop that we didn't really need. But that's just one story out of that 3-month-long adventure that is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You just find people when you need them on the way.
Good morning, everybody. So here you find me on the shores of Lake Huron, only a few hundred meters from Lake Michigan. And I'm about to cross the Mackinaw Straits. This is the last little bit of the adventure. That'll be done. Well, it's a beautiful morning, so I'm going to stop talking. I just want to get on the water for 5 more miles of really pretty paddling. Last shove off of the trip.
So this will be the first time in my life I've ever crossed the Straits of Mackinaw, and haven't had to pay a toll for it. I guess the toll is being paid in many other ways. Goodbye, UP. I'll be back soon. Can't keep me away. So I've paddled out to the concrete anchor before. Done that. I've never gone anywhere past it. It's quite the piece of engineering. Oh, where's the wind coming from? North? Huh, yeah. I wonder if I've got a current here. There is a current that flows through the straits. And it kind of changes direction depending on the weather. Yeah, I'm getting dragged west right now. Go. This is the start of the span. It gets so tall all of a sudden. Interesting sea state out here. We've got waves and wind, and they're all kind of coming from different directions. So here we go. North Tower, and then the main span of the bridge. So that sound is the cars driving on the grates. The middle two lanes of the bridge, I have grates to let air flow through it so it doesn't end up like the Tacoma Narrows and gets all wobbly. This is so cool. And a fun sea state too, like got some waves, got some wind, nothing's white capping. This is perfect. This is sea kayaking right here. This is what sea kayaking is all about. Getting to places that are difficult to get otherwise. Getting there under your own power. This is the center of the span, halfway there. Wow, this sea state's bizarre. I can't tell the predominant wave direction. Like we have waves coming in off of Lake Michigan from the west. We've got a north breeze. The waves from Lake Huron are coming in from the northeast. Very strange. I just got hit with a current. Big current. I'm drifting west very quickly all of a sudden. I can see it on the bridge, but I'm still pointing south. And the wind's behind me. The waves are coming from the west. Wow. Look at that. Okay. The sea state is all over the place. Waves from two different directions and a wind from a third. It's so weird. And then there's a current in here. Wow, it's awesome. It feels really strange. It's like you have to paddle without a cadence or a rhythm to adjust to each wave. It's kind of tiring. I'm getting really warm right now. Well, Lake Michigan's a little rough for me. I'm going to go see if it's any calmer on Lake Huron. No, it's just as rough over here. Still getting cold to the west. Not as much as in the middle. about it.
Into the great wide open, God only knows we try, making it great, and in the moments we get the times of our lives.
And there it is, the end of this adventure. Seeing all of the Michigan shore of Lake Superior and Lake Huron in all of their summer moods. Somewhere around 575 miles over 30 days. I won't wrap it up with some grand philosophical point. You just can't do that with this sort of trip.
And it doesn't really feel any different than any other day on this trip. Just now I know on the end of today, or in like a couple hours, I'm getting picked up and going home. So, yeah, still processing that. I don't want to try to wrap it up with, some grand philosophical point about adventures, because long trips like this, they're not a narrative. They're a series of little vignettes. There are all these dozens of little stories that you string together with a very tenuous thread. I don't have any way I can really connect them in my head other than just saying they happened on the same trip. So, alright. Okay. All done. Alright, let's get out of here. Get the microphone extra close for this one. Filler, baby! GoPro, stop recording.